Welcome to the Defensive Backs Introduction video over 360 series. Today, we're going to look at some of the common vocabulary and concepts we need to start understanding the position of defensive back. We're going to be bouncing around the field a lot for this one, so be ready for that. To start off, we're going to learn the defensive positions, starting with the 5 defensive backs. 2 corners, 2 halfbacks, and a safety. Right now, your perspective is that of a halfback. There's another halfback over on the other side of the field. Take a look to your left, and you can see that off in the distance. Now, we're in the perspective of a cornerback, or corner, on that left side. You can see the halfback beside you, the one that was just highlighted. Way off on the right is the other corner. Finally, we're in the perspective of the free safety, the last of the 5 defensive backs, with the rest of the defense in front of us. Closer to you are the linebackers. They help out in coverage along with the DBs, but are primarily responsible for stopping the run. Beyond them, closest to the offense, is the defensive line. The next concept we introduce is the idea of strength. Every time the defense lines up, we need to determine who is going to line up where. To do this, before every play, we declare strength. While there are a few different ways to determine the strength, we use one main factor, the wide side of the field. When the ball is on the right hash mark, the wide side is on the left. Therefore, we would have a strong left situation. When the ball is on the left hash mark, we would be in strong right. When we're in the middle of the field, like we are now, we default to strong left because we have to pick a side. For defensive backs, we also use the terms field and boundary. There isn't really much of a difference in the terms between field and boundary and strong and weak. However, sometimes, and depending on the offense we're facing, strength might be determined by a different factor. For now, we're going to keep them the same. To the left, you can see the field corner and field half on the strong side. To the right, you can see the boundary corner and the boundary half on the weak side. When we're on a hash mark, the wide side of the field is what we call field, and the short side, closer to the sidelines, is what we call boundary. Now we're back in the boundary half's perspective so that we're closest to the offense to learn about those offensive positions next. In front of you, highlighted now, is what we call the line of scrimmage. This marks where the football was at the end of every play and will be at the start of the next play. If the ball is outside the hash marks when the last play ended, it'll end up placed on a hash. This line of scrimmage separates the offense from the defense. Up on the line of scrimmage to your left is the offensive line. As defensive backs, we're not particularly concerned about them. They're responsible for blocking the defense to either run the ball or to protect the quarterback when there's time to throw the ball. Behind them is the offensive backfield, where you can find the tailback, who typically runs the ball, the fullback, who's usually like another blocker, and the quarterback, who either hands the ball off or throws it. Let's bring our eyes back out to the offensive player in front of you. This is the slot back, and you can see another one over on the other side. Closer to your right is the wide receiver. He also has a mirrored counterpart on the left. We call this receiver set 22 because there are 2 receivers on each side. In order to communicate more efficiently, we also label receivers with numbers from the outside in. So the wide receiver is labeled number 1, and the slot is labeled 2. We are in what's called an outside shade, meaning that we're lined up on the outside shoulder of the slot, number 2, outside meaning away from the quarterback, and closer to the sideline. We do this to make sure we're funneling the slot back to your help. In this case, look over your left shoulder and find the safety. Because he's lined up inside of you for help, we stay in outside shade. Now that we're back at the safety position, we can see all 4 receivers. Both wideouts are labeled 1, and both slots are labeled 2. Again, because we count outside in. 22 is not the only receiver set we're going to see. Now, we can see the offense has lined up in 31 because there are 3 receivers to the strong side, the left, and only 1 receiver weak. The 3 side we can call trips for triple, and the 1 side we can call ISO for the isolated or alone receiver. We use other terms like twins for 2 receivers to one side, like in 22, and quads for 4 receivers on one side. If this formation were flipped with 3 receivers to the weak or the boundary side, it would instead be labeled as 13 instead of 31. Remember, numbering goes strong to weak, not left to right. Slot backs can move around before the snap, so we're going to look at some examples of that. In particular, in this video you're going to see, the slot will approach or attack the line of scrimmage directly at us. Because the slot back can hit the line of scrimmage with speed, we have to be moving as well as a halfback. This time, the slot is going to motion over from the boundary to the field side, turning this formation from 22 to 31. For now, we're going to travel as the halfback, which means we're going to move with him to the other side. Let's see what that looks like. Now that we're over here, notice that we're still in outside shade on the slot, number 3, though now that means we're on the left of the slot rather than the right, so that the safety, our help, is still inside of us. The next variation of this motion of the slot traveling we're going to see is what we call jet motion. Jet motion is still when a slot moves from one side to the other, but the difference will be the timing. Whereas with the trips motion, the slot came over and then approached the line of scrimmage before the snap. This time, the slot will go in front of the quarterback right when the ball is snapped. We're here at the safety position so we can see both the jet motion from the right slot and the regular slot approach from the left slot. Now we're back in the field corner spot. Wide receivers, unlike slots, have to stay on the line of scrimmage. However, they can do what we call waggle. This means that they can move laterally or sideways down the line of scrimmage. First off, let's notice our inside shade. Whereas the halfback has the safety for help, we really don't. Take a look over your right shoulder and see how far the safety is. Because he's so far away, we don't rely on the safety for help. Instead, we use the sidelines as our help, and that's why we line up in inside shade. However, let's see what waggling looks like. You'll notice that now, since we've moved closer in towards the quarterback, we've shifted to outside shade. That is because we have what's called a minus split, meaning that the receiver is closer to the offensive line than usual. As a corner, if our wide receiver goes to a minus split, we're now close enough that the sideline won't help us, but the safety can. For halfbacks, if the slots go to a plus split, where they move closer to the sideline and further from the quarterback, we would potentially then move to an inside shade. That's going to take us to the end of our defensive backs introduction session. Up next, make sure you look at the video that builds off of these concepts by introducing man coverage and zone coverage basics. See you there.